Alright, this is part 2E of my series on Christian unity, and this part will cover the Christ hymn. Now, this hymn is very important because it's one of the earliest writings, or one of the earliest hymns we have from the early church. Usually dated like a couple of years, at most I've seen like 10 years after Jesus died, so it's very early material upon Jesus. Now, I will say that I do include verse 5 in here, even though some historians will say it only goes to verse 6. But that's getting a little bit, into the historical realm, like what, constitutes the hymn versus what constitutes Paul's writing. But nevertheless, I think verse 5 is very important for this, and I do think that it probably is original. So, we will begin. Let this be in your mind, which was also in Jesus Christ. So this is saying that you should keep in your mind what Jesus Christ also had in his. So you should try to emulate Jesus Christ. And this is also in several other verses, and also you'll in the Great Commission you'll see that Jesus said to follow his teaching. So this is saying that you should emulate Christ. But we'll continue. Who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God. So it's saying that Jesus was equal with God and being in the form of God. But he made no retribution, taking on the form of a bondservant. So Jesus was equal with God and had this great status, but he gave it up, or came to earth in the form of a servant, of a bondservant to God. And this is actually very important because because a lot of people ask, how can you believe in Jesus if, he just came to earth as a servant? He didn't, come with all his glory. But this is saying that he gave up that glory he had in heaven in order to come down and live as a servant. And coming in the likeness of men, and being found in the appearance of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient even to the point of death. So when it's saying that we should emulate Christ, it's saying that we should be absolutely obedient to God and his commandments. It's saying that Christ was very obedient in this regard, and that we should humble ourselves like Christ did. And this is actually a very good distinction between Christianity and other religions which claim to have God come down. Because, if you look at the Romans, they believed that the emperor was God, but he, expected the duties that came along with it. He expected to be worshipped. He expected, to be given everything. And in Christianity, we see the exact opposite. Jesus was a servant. He came to serve rather than to be served. And so I think that's a very good distinction that we can make. Even and obedient even to the death, even the death of a cross. Therefore God has also highly exalted him. Notice that it's saying that Jesus was equal with God, but here it's making a distinction between him and God the Father. So this is again showing about the Trinity. Anyway, therefore God has also highly exalted him, and given him the name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, of those in heaven, and of those on earth, and of those under the earth, and that every tongue should confess. Now, I discussed this in my The Deity of Christ Part 1, but this is actually taken from a verse of Isaiah, which says that every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess, and then it uses the divine name of the Lord. Shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So here it's making a distinction between Jesus Christ, Lord, and God the Father. And so we can see that that's a very important, and that this is very foundational to the Trinity. And by the way, this is actually very similar to the passage found in John 1. In fact, they almost have the exact same thing. Like John 14 says that he humbled himself, bringing him down to the likeness of a man. Well, it actually says that, and the Word became flesh, but it's related here when it says that he came down and found in the appearance of a man. And so it's also this passage also talks about his relationship with the Father, and so does John 1. So there are a lot of parallels to be drawn between this and John 1, although this is very, very early in the Christian church. Many I've seen dated to only 2 years after Jesus died. Others date it to as far as 10 years, but it's still very early within the Christian church. Alright. So, belief in the Trinity and belief that Jesus is God and is very foundational to Christian belief. And also, humbling yourself, being like Jesus, is very foundational. And, alright, thank you for watching, and God bless.